Welcome, everybody. Super happy to have you here today. My name is Terri Sullivan. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Waypoint. It's waypointconverts.com. And our sole focus, really my passion is I've been in sales for over I don't even know if I want to say. I think I've been in sales for over 20 something years, at least 2 decades. I like the way that Adrienne writes it, but I've been in sales for about 2 decades, and then started my own company back in 2018 and launched our first product in 2019 to help senior living. So our product is called the Navigator, and we basically have a concierge that sits on senior living provider websites and some digital forms, and we really work closely with our partners to help create journeys, particularly for senior living. It's such a unique sale. And my passion really is personalizing the sales process. So it made total sense for my business partner and I to start a company that really focused on personalizing it specifically in senior living. So I'm super excited to be here. And just so you know, one of the reasons why we launched Coffee with Waypoint and Friends is because when we work with partners and customers, we often get to meet the rest of their team that helps them with their digital marketing strategy. And one of the things I've noticed is that we all have great products that serve the senior living space based on what someone's looking for. But at the end of the day, we tend to silo our education on it. And the reality is we're all interconnected. We all help you with your digital marketing strategy and your goals. And so what I wanted to do is create a webinar that would bring in strategic partners to talk in less of a siloed way about products and services, but more in an overarching way in which how they all work together to help you meet your goals in your digital marketing. So welcome. This is our second Coffee with Waypoint and Friends, and I'm super excited to have Adrienne with us. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Feel free to ask questions throughout. Peggy from our team is on. She's going to field any questions that you might have as we go. And at the end of the day, at the end of this webinar, there's two things we're going to give you as a takeaway for joining us. Number one is Adrienne's created a beautiful ebook specifically for this webinar and this content. So at the end, after the event, we're going to send you a recording as well as the ebook of this webinar. And then we're also going to ask you what kind of coffee you like, whether you like Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, which is my favorite. And we're going to send you a little gift for joining us, participating, and taking the time to learn about these really amazing topics. So anyways, and just a small warning, there's a lot of energy here with Adrienne. I met Adrienne working on Camellia Place and Empower Living. And Adrienne is just a brilliant woman, very passionate. And I think we really connected in a kindred in a way in which we were so passionate about personalization, innovation, entrepreneurship, how unique the senior living sales process is, and the different things that we could do to help improve that, particularly for consumers. And then also on the sales side, I have a passion for really helping salespeople. So for me, the sales part of this, that marketing bridging to sales is so critical. So we're really excited to share some of this stuff with you. So allow me please to introduce Adrienne Mansfield. She's from ADage Marketing, couple decades in marketing, particularly with a large focus in senior living. And she has a strategy around, and I want to make sure I get it right, of what she calls story keeping when it comes to helping senior living providers take on the truly unique challenge of the senior living sale and the consumer and what they're going through and the journey that they go through when they're looking for senior living. So I am super excited to introduce Adrienne. So Adrienne, I wonder if maybe you could kick us off by talking a little bit about story keeping and then
Yes,
jump us into the webinar. How's that sound?
I will. It's actually going to tie beautifully right into the webinar. So,
Okay, perfect.
as we look at kind of our key takeaways for today, let me just give you them in the context of story keeping. So yes, I have been doing this, as Terri said, I like to say 2 decades. I don't like to put a year to it, but over the years, I started with regional SNF providers and scaled with organizations as they grew from 5 to 50. But what what led us to starting ADage Marketing Group in 2020 was that human first philosophy. So we can actually jump off there. When it comes to the human first philosophy, story keeping is what we do. So for 20 years, we've seen what I call the good, the bad, the heartbreaking, and the heartwarming, right? And Camellia Place, actually, we're going to reference here in a little bit, which is where Terri and I connected originally. It was incredible to get to see some of the stories that we've seen over the years and take away, to get to keep them and share them from one community to another in a way that helps everyone improve, enhance, and see things differently. So I think that we can use that to kick us off, if you don't mind, Terri.
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
sounds great.
conscious of time.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So can you advance to the next slide?
You got it.
Thank you.
There we go.
So in order to meet people where they are, I think the very first thing, and this is what I love about Terri's, approach. So her first company, was all about the customer journey. Back in 2018, I was training at my previous organization on the customer journey, which is what we're going to focus on today. But you hear often in sales and marketing, meet people where they are. In order to do that, you have to have the empathy to find them. So, leading here with a human first philosophy, we believe that all of the strategic planning, whether it's choosing your direct mail list, choosing which software solutions or webhooks you're going to integrate, all of that ties into understanding where the person is. So we've actually launched EQ Matters, which is a customary training that we do we're launching it again this year at Owala, and we presented it last year at Cala, starting with emotional intelligence and starting with understanding where the person is from an emotional, cognitive, neuroscience perspective helps us not just capture the right messaging, but also capture the right next step. So if we can go on to the next slide.
Kind of takes like personalization into
It
a whole,
does.
whole new stratosphere. Oh, there it is. There.
Yes, there it is. So in order to visualize that success, you have to start by journey mapping. It's one of my favorite activities to do both internally, with new clients at our agency, but also on a large scale. We have several tools that we've built that are just out on LinkedIn to help providers really map the process, because it's easy, as Terri said, to silo. This is the marketing, this is the sales, and this is the operation. And what a human first philosophy does is tie all of that together into one singular horizontal approach. And it all starts with the journey. So in order to personalize, as Terri said, you have to start with figuring out what are the touch points where this person is going to interact with us. And then when we talk about the sales process here in a minute, what do we need to meet them with? So if you want to advance to the next slide, Terri. Yes. All right. So I'm going to point out allow me a drink. I'm going to point out a few key pieces here. And again, everyone is going to get this in a download when we're done, along with some fun data trends that we see that are impacting these things. So if we think about meeting the family where they are, we start with emotionally, what are they going through? What information do they need to gather from us? What is their in-person experience with us, right? So we're thinking about all of that from our perspective. But again, what I call it in our training is sitting on the other side of the table. So I ask my trainees or my attendees to talk about a time that they did something new for the first time, or they had a really emotional decision to make. That's where that emotional intelligence and empathy leads into the ability to really capture what that family is going through. A lot of seasoned sales teams are like, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I know what they're doing. I know what they need. But the data tells us a different story. There is currently a faster decision-making process, which you would see here between assessment, discussion, and decision-making. That is expediting in some service levels and lengthening in others. Those are things the sales team needs to understand. And then we need to look at, from a human perspective, why? Is it the market that's holding them back? Is it current care concerns that are holding them back? And start to really sit in their seat.
Interesting.
And what I love, before we go on, about Waypoint And what it's brought in with good CRM data, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute, is the ability to capture that person. So understand that when they come in at initial contact, they might come in, they might browse the site, they might go away. Now, between there, 1 and 2, that is, some people refer to it otherwise, but I call it the dark funnel. And we've always talked about the dark funnel. You ask your friends, you look at the social media, you read the reviews. That's the information gathering they're doing. When we talk about the educated consumer, yes, they are more educated than they were in the past. But all of that tells us is that they've changed channels, right? And what we need to focus on is what channels do they trust the most, which again, we're going to talk about in a minute with resident referrals. But understanding how do we enable that process? And what I love is that with Waypoint, what we're able to do is capture the lifestyle quiz when they're still in that information gathering, pre-tour stage. We're also able to re-engage leads who have left, gone to the dark funnel, and decided to come on back. And resurfacing that brochure content that your creative teams like us work really hard on, is a great way to inform those families right up front before they ever come in for the tour. And that post-tour experience and leveraging that for creative follow-up and moving forward, that's all what needs to be captured and automated with the CRM. But we'll talk about that in a second.
Adrienne, do you have any data on the total number of touch points? I've seen some stuff published in
Mm,
but do you have anything that you've learned through your working with clients approximately, whether it's independent living, assisted living, memory care? Do you have any data on that or any data points on that?
yes. The data points that I've seen probably align with what you've seen, 20 to 25 touches.
Yeah.
And I actually have one of the things we build for our clients is called a leads needs calculator. And
Mhm.
part of what that does is measure the sales activities that each lead is going to need.
Yeah.
And one of maybe a 2.0 for this journey mapping is reverse engineering. What does your sales process look like? What does an effective sale take? How many voice to voice? How many creative follow-ups? How many re-engagements on the website?
Yeah.
But from an overarching kind of tipping point, Malcolm Gladwell perspective, anywhere between 17 and 25.
Interesting. The other thing is we met with a customer this week in New Jersey, and we were looking at their analytics, and data drives a lot of the decisions on what providers do or how they change the experience on their website to support where the consumers are in this initial contact and awareness and information gathering first part of this, right? And we
Mm,
we saw that there were like 6,700 people that were going to the floor plans and pricing page. And the data was simple, right? It just showed what they were clicking on, where it went to on the navigator, and then back into the page. And there were limited calls to action or limited additional content for them to connect to after they looked at the floor plans in order to continue the journey of them doing their information gathering. So I assume that some of this too is also driven by data that you've captured and
absolutely. And
understanding.
it's the
Yeah.
insight, taking that to the next step. So data only takes you so far,
Hmm.
and you have to do a little strategic jump.
Yeah.
And that's where I love that when you're looking at your data analytics, I think a lot of people get distracted with what I call vanity metrics. Um, but when we look at a high level of engagement in an area of a site, that is an immediate next step. How do we place a conversion form here?
Yeah. Or
Right?
additional content that they
Yes,
take
yes, some
down the
sort of
journey of seeing that
capture
place somewhere
takeaway.
else to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very
So when
interesting.
we go to the sales process, which is up next,
Yeah.
that's where all of this information has to be captured.
Hmm.
I think that when it comes to uh, all salespeople are doing the best that they can. They have an incredibly hard job, and I would not trade them on a daily basis. They have an emotional bandwidth and a life path that is way bigger than mine, I think. But what I see is that there's often ways that we need to enable them more effectively.
Hmm.
Can we go to the next?
100%. I
Yes.
that's what we
Sorry.
live.
I was like, wait,
That's
there's a
where I
really good
live.
stat for this.
Yeah.
Uh, So, we talk about the improvement of a specific sales activity, and I quote, the Sherpa stat of a 56% lift with one home visit, which I actually saw when I did a data analysis of a 23 community portfolio. One person was not stellar in any particular area, except she did a home visit with every lead, and
Hmm.
her conversion rate just knocked everybody else out of the park.
Interesting.
But in order to do that, in order to do a home visit, you have to have captured their address.
Yeah.
We did a market research analysis. The case studies on our website. where we reached out to, I think, 15 communities across 3 markets in 2 states. And the number of phone calls we got in response, abysmal. Out of the ones we were tracking, only one of our 3 inquiries made it into the CRM at
Wow.
all. So
Yeah.
there was no follow-up.
Yeah.
And, you know, in order to do effective follow-up, you have to capture that information. So is there a way, sitting down with your sales team, what part of this is hard? How can we get around that? I had one individual that I coached who down in Florida who just really struggled with typing. So we got her an iPad, and this was when voice to text was a new thing. We're like, listen, we got it, right? Copy paste. So whatever it takes to get the data into the CRM so that we can utilize it effectively. Another great example of that as it relates to both sales and marketing is, when you're purchasing your direct mail lists. If we do a data append for a client and we see that only 20% of the total data set has the zip codes, that's not a safe bet to be making decisions off of.
Mm.
So it all goes back to the data. And as much as you can capture via web information and then leveraging that in, I love that Waypoint hooks right into the
Right.
CRM.
Well,
Um,
if I can add something there too, as a sales professional, because I know we have some sales directors on here too, or sales leaders on here, not just marketing leaders, is that as a sales professional, I've done it my whole life. I did before I started my own company, I did resent the CRM a little bit, I'm not gonna lie.
mhm,
Because I'd much rather be
mhm.
talking to customers and doing things than entering stuff into the CRM. And integrations are critical, and our product does integrate, and all that data goes in. But at the end of the day, when I do sales training, I always try to say to the salespeople, that it really is your friend, because as now that I have my own company and I run my own company, every meeting that I have with a client is critical because I ask
Mhm.
a lot of questions and I want to understand what it is they're trying to achieve and the strategy that they're trying to reach towards. And then how do we fit into that strategy? And if you don't make notes and you don't capture that in the CRM and you don't follow up, it's impossible to really personalize a sales process if you're not following that. So I
Oh,
became my own my own believer.
right. If I
Yeah,
could share as a story keeper, if I could just share
yeah.
a really great story. So part of what we did with a recent sales training was personality tests in advance. Again, data drives everything. And if I understand a person's Myers-Briggs and their attachment style and their Enneagram, I can effectively coach them. And I think is true for most sales trainers. So anyway, so we did this personality assessment. We sent a pre-survey email out. Everyone who completed it, got their own customized EQ qualified, little badge or whatever. But the cool part was on the road to, training excellence, we're tell us what color car you're going to jump into. Tell us what salty snack and sweet snack and drink you grab on the way, right? So then we flew to 3 different locations. And when we arrived, for each team, for each training, if you had completed the form, you received whatever you asked for.
Uh,
So it meant that some weird runs and some Instacart drops, and I had to find spicy pickles, and they didn't have a Whole Foods in that market, and specific brands didn't matter, right? We did the thing. At 3 o'clock, we bring out the snacks. Anybody who didn't complete the form still received a snack in a brown sack. It was an apple, a granola bar, and a small bottle of water. That's the difference that capturing discovery and leveraging discovery
yeah,
can mean to the experience.
that's great.
And I think you and I agree, it's all about the experience. So
I
understand,
always go back to the Lorna Doone story, but I'm not going to
yes, the
go.
the explanation of, understanding that if you're going to map this person's journey, you owe it to them to capture that journey and then leverage that journey to help them find the right solution.
Yeah,
And I think that their experience of us in terms of senior living as a brand, they're overwhelmed, they're underinformed. We need to meet them with first empathy, and then, walk with them along the journey, capture that information. You owe it to them to keep their story. And that's, again, I am not a fan of the note-taking process. I have paper notes everywhere. I'm one of those people. But I also know that if it's not in writing, it's not real. So getting my notes into the CRM, leveraging that for follow-up, you don't miss the trick. You don't miss that note where, for example, in a B2B relationship building example, which I don't think we spend enough time on in this industry, um, In that relationship building, I have sealed more than one meeting with a meme.
Really?
I kid you not. One time, this woman mentioned that she was not, she was a huge Penn State fan. Her kids were going there. Her and her husband had gone there, and they were playing Ohio State that weekend. I know very little about sports and current events. However, the following Monday, when I had scheduled to follow up with her, um, I sent one of the Ralphie Christmas story memes, and it says, "Still a better gift than an Ohio State jersey." And I landed
That's
an
awesome.
in-person meeting.
That's
So
awesome.
people want to be thought of, they want to be remembered. And that's where CRM really comes into the human first philosophy.
100%. Good stuff.
So again, going to that mapping that sales process, if we know where they're at in the journey, we know what we need to deliver to them. And so I strongly recommend use this as a checklist. Ask yourself, do we have all of the information available to inform them at each of these stages? Do you have a map to the move that clearly outlines what the next steps are? So it takes away all of that anxiety of I don't know what's happening next. Um, and also I think I will the hill that I will plant my flag in for 2024 is the post-purchase experience, which we're going to talk about here next. If you want to advance the slide, Terri.
Sure.
We get into keeping our sales funnel full. It starts with excellent onboarding. Why? Because that is when we can ask for the referral. That is when we say, tell your friends. That is when we can surprise and delight. So, and I know that's an old industry term. I'm not sure we're even still using it, but I do. I want to share a story real quick here as a story keeper for Camellia Place, actually, Terri and I's introduction. They recently had a client, a resident who was moving, and the story behind it was so cool that I was like, full stop. Here's the photo shoot list. Here's the questions I need you to ask. Capture this story for me. And we're in the process of getting that finalized. But two friends met in 1978 in the Navy. And one of them was aging and needed more support, was located in California, was through this friendship, they were relocating him from California all the way to Georgia. And one of the staff from Camellia Place flew out to meet him and fly back with him.
Wow.
Right. And so those are the stories of personalized onboarding that we need to be prepared to tell. And those are the moments where really everything we do up until the sale, in my mind, is trust building, right? But once you have that post-purchase experience, now it's delivery. Now it's time to walk the talk. So if you advance to the next slide, we actually, in addition to enriching that onboarding experience, my joke is testimonials or it didn't happen, right? So help your teams capture those great stories, those ways that they're going out of their way. I know we have a few independent, smaller communities on the call. We also have some larger providers. This has to happen, like this scale process has to happen for capturing stories, because that is how we build trust right up front. That's where the dark funnel becomes our best friend, where we're leveraging not just reviews, but testimonials. We're putting them out in our marketing. We're using them in our collateral pieces. And then the second half of this, as it relates to onboarding, is using it for real life. So that brings me to resident referred leads. I know we're close on time. Understand that this is where the gold is. If it's what kept most of our communities alive and full during COVID, if we do a good job of taking care of our families and our residents, they will take care of us. So I tell every provider we work with, your residents should be your number one referral source. Also, it'll make your sales team a whole lot happier to have leads that are more likely to convert and already primed, and it will make the onboarding process for that family even easier. So all of that means we also have to be planning for the back door. So just to tie this all together, that sounds like a sad way to end it, and I promise it's not. When we look at planning, when I talk about the leads needs calculator, the sales calculator, when we talk about planning for attrition, it is essential for keeping our sales teams engaged, because then they're not netting 10 and not realizing that we're thinking they're netting 10, not realizing they're netting 3 because we've got 7 out. It also, by focusing on feedback loops and implementing those within your organization, whether that's post-purchase, ongoing, with strategic reasons like diversity, et cetera, engaging with that experience, quantifying it in whatever way we can, whether that's through story keeping or through data, that's the opportunity for providers to be able to get ahead of some of what feels like churn. Because while it's wonderful to be generating, and I've seen this a lot, a solid pipeline, you've got your sales team on track, but we've got an issue where we're having to constantly raise the bar on everyone. So again, regular satisfaction surveys, maintaining that long-term resident experience, delivering on the promise. That's where it's all at.
So I have a couple questions before we get into the end here. For the folks that have joined the call, Adrienne, we've done some customer journey mapping for our company for a couple of our products, but you know, this is something that I think is detailed and needs to be really thoughtful. Do you have any advice for the folks on the call today that, that do want to do the journey mapping and want to understand more about who their consumers are, being more empathetic to where they are, what they are, and then, moving towards a place where you can have the content that you would need in order to support, those different journeys or different paths of where they are in their journey?
I think we leverage that with data actually. So our first move is to support clients by appending their 18-24 months worth of resident and their family members detailed demographic and psychographic data.
Okay.
So we can get a composite profile of who are we actually talking to and what matters to them. It's also leveraging first party survey data. One of our most successful direct mail campaigns to adult children was what's keeping you up at night? And it was a survey. So it's asking and leveraging those data points to really understand where they're at, um, both demographically, geographically, psychographically, but also emotionally and intellectually. One thing I think a lot of organizations struggle with too, without that data append and that predictive analytics profile, I have a CCRC that we need to be speaking at a master's degree in order to resonate with their target audience. I have other organizations where we need to be more in the Reader's Digest version, right, of our
Mhm.
language and our usage. And that's not just the usage of specific words, that's
Mhm.
our tone, that's our voice. Um, one of my favorite campaigns that I've ever worked on was really looking at a regional portfolio and breaking down each community's individual personality and again capturing that story, developing that clear brand promise. What do we actually do well, and start leveraging off of that to build your content strategies. And so to customer journey map, I work backwards from who is the person and what platforms are they using. And then from there, I say, okay, when I'm on there, what do they need from me? What is the actionable takeaway? Again, following right along with what they're asking for from us. And then in what way do I need to say it? So that's where marketing comes in. And then sales has to be resonant. One of the things you'll notice in the ebook is trust is derived by how consistently you connected with them omni-channel. So the emails were consistent. And I don't just mean the brand look and vibe, I mean the feeling, the quality. Having an automated email go out after a form fill is lovely. It's a quick speed to lead move. But if you take the time to read the navigator that they submitted and send something custom, 5 more minutes, 10 times more value. So again, I think that it's looking at mapping the processes that you currently have and then identifying where the gaps are that you need to fill in.
Yeah, we have some customers that they use for their automated marketing, like they'll use a lifestyle quiz or capture some data.
Mhm,
And they'll be able to pull all the data of everybody who responded saying that music is,
mhm,
important to them and then be able to shoot out a blast. But if that salesperson receives that data as well, either via text, email, and they can see that that's important to somebody, then if they could just do something, one small touch point in that sales process, that would
mhm,
personalize that journey for that person,
mhm,
whatever it might be, whatever the data is you're collecting. I think that's one place that we see with our customers and when we do sales training, because our customers want the sales associates to use the data more to provide
mhm,
a better, more customized journey. And they tend to get locked into qualifying, just finding the,
mhm.
the lowest hanging fruit, which makes
Low
sense
hanging fruit,
from a
yes.
human perspective. That makes total
That,
sense. But if you can push that little extra mile and do a little bit something extra for somebody, then you will be able to uncover truly, what they need, what they want. They'll trust you more, and you can understand the customer better. So that's all good, really
Yeah.
great stuff. So
Mapping that sales process as well, right? Asking yourself, what is my sales team doing? What are the expectations? And how can I enable that? I would give anything for a CRM with a checkbox selector for veteran status.
yeah.
I'm putting that on my birthday wish list this year. I'm going to send it to
We
Michael Moya and a few of
do.
my other CRM friends and say, please put a checkbox for this, because there are at least 2 times a year that it is really easy to send a segmented blast to
Yeah.
your VA aid and attendants,
We
right?
do ask it in one of our lifestyle quizzes.
You
I mean,
do,
it's
right?
customizable. We ask it, and then we have to create a custom field. As long as the CRM
Mhm.
has a custom field, we can send it into. So we do send that into HubSpot. But some of the
Mhm.
others, like Welcome Home, some of that gets dropped into notes
Notes. So
versus
I do
getting
a
to be
search
a
in notes.
checkbox. Yeah, it
That's a
should be
pro
a
tip
field.
for everybody. Do a search
Yeah,
in notes, export that CSV, and now you've got a segmented list. But there's
yeah, for
lots of
sure.
opportunities for first party data, surveying your current database and asking them what they're interested in, and then using that to convert them.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Mhm.
So anything else you want to add, Adrienne? So I open it up for questions. We are a couple minutes over time, but if people can stay, that's great. Feel free to ask any questions that you want. And Peggy, if you want to, and before you guys jump off, someone just jumped off. We are offering a coffee gift card for thanking you for attending and just getting to know us a little bit. So if you want to put your preference in chat, Peggy will take care of that. And then also we'll be sending you a resource guide, but we'll open it up for questions, see if anybody has any questions. We're happy to stay on and answer anything we can and kind of go from there. So please feel free to drop some questions in the chat. No chats.
No chats.
No chats.
Or
Okay.
unmute yourself. You can certainly ask if you don't feel like typing it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, okay, well, thank you everyone for joining today. We really appreciate your time. And if there's anything we can do for you, please feel free to reach out to either Adrienne or myself direct. You guys do have an email for us. Would love the opportunity to learn more about what your strategies are, see if we can help you. And keep an eye out for next month. We're going to be talking about geo-target marketing next month with Canopy. So we hope to see you there, and we'll put some more information out on dates and that sort of thing. So we look forward to it. But if you need anything or would like to reach out, please feel free. And thanks for joining today.
Well, before we hang up,
But,
if you can just pop into chat if you would like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. And that way I can gather your information and get you your gift cards.
Yep.
Thanks, Mary Elizabeth. Thanks, Melissa. Keep going, Catalina. Thank you.
Yeah, they're all on my side. They're all
Woo!
yeah, I'm the
Oh,
Duncan
Jackie.
one. You're killing me, guys.
You're the Duncan girl?
I'm the Duncan girl.
Oh,
My oldest daughter dressed up for me as Halloween, and she had on one of my sweaters, and she had a big extra large Duncan.
that's
Christy,
great.
thank you. That's so funny. Well, I know Duncan is somewhat regional.
It is.
So,
Yes.
anybody else? Got a couple more people to go here, but thank you for adding that so far, those who have.
Okay.
Any questions, feel free to reach out. We look forward to any feedback you have, questions on the ebook, etc.
Awesome.
Great job. That was really informative.
Oh,
Really,
thanks, Adam.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording so we can share it out.